like to say Happy New Year to you all. So Happy New Year. Fire evacuation procedure. There is no fire drill planned. So if the fire alarm sounds, please follow the committee staff and leave by the exit nearest the large screen at the front of the room and proceed down the fire exit to the courtyard. Once it is safe to return, councillors will receive a text message. Officers will also advise when it is safe to return to the meeting. Webcasting. We are recording this meeting this evening. The webcast will be transmitted live on the council's YouTube channel and will also be available on the council's website. Generally, the public seating areas are not filmed. However, by entering the St George's Suite and using the public seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and training purposes being used for those. Item number 1, apologies for absence. I have received apologies for absence from Councillors Ball and Councillor David Harrison. Are there any other apologies for absence?
Yeah. Apologies from Councillor Bagger and Moore.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors? Apologies for absence. Thank you. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest to be made by members? Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just the usual one, Essex County Council and Baz exit.
I'll take all the county councillors on block, so thank you for making me aware of that. Councillor Ansell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare an interest in item 9 on the agenda. This item relates to my disclosable pecuniary interest as a director of a business that operates in the planning industry. I'll withdraw from the meeting for the duration of this item and will not vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ansell. Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got an interest in item number 9, the Noak Bridge Neighbourhood plan. I'm a parish councillor on Noak Bridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. Moving on to item number 3, the minutes. Do I have agreement that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 14th of November 2024 are a true and correct record? I hope to seek a consensus on the meeting for this without a formal vote. General assent? Thank you. Announcements. Members will have been emailed a list of the visits that myself and the Deputy Mayor have carried out since the last meeting for information. Are there any announcements from the Deputy Mayor? The Leader of the Council. Thank you. Leader.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to wish all members and staff of the Council a very happy new year. I have high hopes for 2025, not least that this will be the year that Sunderland return to the top tier of English football.
As long as Everton don't take the place.
Well, that I can't guarantee. On a more serious note, I want to sincerely thank the residents and businesses of our borough who supported our Gift at Christmas campaign. The response was incredible. Over 5,500 gifts were generously donated by people from across our borough. Thanks to this overwhelming support, my Cabinet colleagues and I were able to ensure that every child living in temporary accommodation received gifts this Christmas. And I want to especially acknowledge Elizabeth from my office, who worked tirelessly to coordinate the donations. Her work ensured that each child received multiple gifts, thoughtfully wrapped and ready to brighten up their Christmas morning. It was a monumental effort, and we simply would not have been able to do it without her. Next, Mr Mayor, I want to address the accusations that the Member of Parliament for South Basildon and East Thurrock, the convicted criminal James McMurdoch, has made towards this council and our housing officers this week. Apparently, the convicted woman-beating MP now wants to lecture this council on how we should treat vulnerable women. After all, who better to protect vulnerable women than someone who knows exactly who they need protecting from? Mr McMurdoch reported on social media and in a press release that Basildon Borough Council had breached over 100 times the statutory 6-week time limit. This is not true. He has subsequently reduced this figure to 37 in the space of a week. The data that we provided to him has been grossly misinterpreted, or put in terms he'd understand, monstered. The figures he has reported shows all the monthly totals simply added together, which means it contains a high number of the same households, double or even triple counted. During this period, most families are the same ones carried over from month to month, rather than the new cases each month as the MP has mistakenly interpreted. For instance, in both September and October 2024, there were 15 families over the threshold. These were the same families, meaning the total across the 2 months is 15, not 30. In November, there were 23 families over the threshold. Again, this wasn't 23 new families. It included the 15 from the previous months plus 8 new ones. The actual number of families affected is therefore far lower than the MP's claim suggests. It is unclear to me why he has chosen to present the figures in this misleading way. It is either incompetence or mendacity. What is worrying is that Mr. McMurdoch purports to have spent a career rehabilitating himself from a life of crime by working with numbers in a bank. It must have been Northern Rock. Let me be crystal clear. In the time frame that the MP quotes, this council has supported in excess of 1,000 families in temporary accommodation. As an average, we have had around 800 families in TA every day of the period his data request covers. Of those 800 families, on our very worst day, the maximum number of families that would have been in breach of the 6-week rule was 23. So to be clear again, on our worst day for housing TA cases, the housing officers at this council, under the strong stewardship of Kirsty O'Connell, were achieving a 97% success rate at getting families from TA into more suitable and secure tenancies each and every day. The longest a family has been over the threshold is 16 weeks due to a particular complication which I cannot legally go into details of here. The shortest period of time is on average 8 weeks, which we accept is still 2 weeks above the statutory threshold. But we take our statutory duties very seriously and have always prided ourselves on never having any cases above the 6-week threshold until recently when the mortgage crisis began following Liz Truss's mini budget. We are completely transparent in our reporting to central government and have openly discussed this with MHCLG a number of times. To suggest we have breached the deadline in over 100 cases and act as a, quote, slum landlord is completely false, irresponsible, and flies in the face of the incredibly hard work carried out by our housing and our homelessness officers on a daily basis. In fact, with B&B and hotel accommodation being amongst the most expensive options for a local authority, even the most intellectually challenged of MPs would understand that it is in the council's own financial interests to move people out as soon as possible. Again, I thought he'd understand that, especially given he is a big banker. Mr. Mayor, the national and local housing crisis is such that affordable properties across any tenure are increasingly scarce. On most days, a check of any property website will show next to no private rented sector properties within the LHA rates anywhere in Essex, let alone in Basildon. In the last 12 months, of the 72,000 homes that exist in the Basildon Borough, there have been fewer than 15 two-bedroom properties become available to rent at LHA rates in this borough. Think about what that means for our housing officers. Less than 2 properties a month becoming available when your TA is in the hundreds. Now, this does sadly mean that people are staying longer in temporary accommodation while they wait for a settled home. But it does not mean that we are doing nothing. The first speech that I made to this council on the 23rd of May outlined my belief that tackling TA was a critical issue for the new administration. Since then, we have taken a report and an update on TA to every single cabinet meeting. We have changed the housing allocations policy and introduced a new strategy on TA housing. We amended the capital programme in the autumn to give the council an additional £80 million to invest in new housing stock. We have acquired 374 brand new properties in just 70 months to house our TA, including 65 that open in the borough just next week. I have personally visited the bed and breakfasts and met residents, held surgeries and followed up on each case, with almost all of those cases resolved. In his letter, the MP makes some further mistakes, or as he likes to call them, teenage indiscretions. In the most recent set of data from MHCLG, in the Eastern region, there were 340 households with children in bed and breakfasts, 170 of which had been there for more than 6 weeks. So exactly 50% of councils in our region were in breach. That shows that we are far from an outlier or an exception to the rule. If we look wider at England as a whole, there were 5,910 families with children in bed and breakfasts over the same period, 3,770 of which were there for over 6 weeks, 64%. In the last set of data, we had 11 breaches. Castle Point had 9 and Southend had 21. Both of these councils were omitted from the MP's letter. Now, we can all cherry-pick councils with low to zero breaches, but the national data shows that half the councils in our area are in breach. It is also interesting that he has chosen to compare Basildon, which is the largest council in both population terms and economy in the whole of South Essex, with smaller, more affluent areas such as Brentwood, Chelmsford and Rochford, in order to make his shallow point. It is like comparing Manchester City with Millwall. These councils have a significantly different demographic and housing offer than Basildon, and they do not experience the challenges of significant deprivation that Basildon experiences. And interestingly, the Housing Ombudsman has recently found that in Brentwood, they have been gatekeeping access to services. In other words, Brentwood has been refusing to allow homelessness applications from the get-go, which in turn will mean that their numbers are artificially lower. In Thurrock, the council is a unitary authority, which is the major differentiator with the districts he has chosen to compare us with. As a unitary council, they have access to supported housing, such as drug and alcohol, social care and mother and baby units, all of which are not available to district councils. In addition, Thurrock has been actively acquiring TA housing stock over a number of years. If Basildon was a unitary authority with the same access to the types of additional housing that Thurrock has been able to access, we would not have been in breach. Now, Mr. Mayor, all of this was explained in detail to Mr. McMurdoch's office in an email sent to him on the 8th of November. He clearly didn't quite understand it. It should also be noted that Basildon is the second largest area for London councils to discharge their temporary accommodation duties. That is because our housing stock is cheaper than in Brentwood, Chelmsford or Rochford. Again, this is something that is obvious to most people, but apparently not to Reform. Mr. Mayor, our housing and homelessness teams are brilliant. They do incredibly challenging work, and it is wrong for an ill-informed MP to aggressively target our officers with his latest angry outburst. They didn't deserve it when his staff were sending abusive and aggressive emails in the summer, and I had to write to him to ask him to get them to stop. And they didn't deserve it on Friday when he aggressively went for them again after a week in which Parliament was debating again whether it was right for the people of South Basildon and East Thurrock to have been blindly called to be participants in the Great Reform Rehabilitation Experiment. Now, I have asked Mr. McMurdoch if he would meet with me, and he has twice ignored the invitation. I have asked Mr. McMurdoch if he would debate this issue with me on BBC Essex in the studio live, and he has ignored the request. There is a truth about this Reform MP, which is obvious for everyone to see. He is an aggressive bully, and he should know that on our watch, we will stand up to him and his lies. The opposition parties, Mr. Mayor, cannot have it both ways. The irony is not lost on me that this week I have received letters from the Conservative MP opposing house building in the borough and the Reform MP complaining about a lack of housing in the borough for homelessness. Two men, two wafer-thin majorities, totally out of touch. Meanwhile, a Labour and Independent Council getting on with the hard yards of governing and bringing about real change that these families desperately need. We will not be deterred from this work by a two-bob, one-term wonder. Mr. Mayor, finally, I want to say something more positive. On behalf of the whole council, I want to say a big thank you to Mr. Bromley Derry, who will be leaving us at the end of this week. Kim has been a brilliant interim chief executive, bringing a calm, an intelligence and an expertise to the council after a chaotic few months. I'm grateful to him for all of his work, particularly on TA and devolution especially. I know he will continue to be a friend to Basildon, and I wish him well in his next job, and we all look forward to welcoming Gary Jones to the council as our new chief executive on Monday. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Canahan. Are there any Cabinet members with announcements? Please indicate. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. Not too much, because we get on with things in the housing brief. We've tried our first Saturday surgery for housing repairs, and we need to get some more publicity behind it. It served 3 residents, but the usual Thursday housing repair surgeries are going very well. Some residents are coming back with the same case a second time because things didn't quite proceed as they wanted to, but those points have been dealt with and addressed, and that was the whole point of these surgeries, because sometimes when you dial the number, you're not really talking to a tradesperson who would understand exactly the faults. So that's been a great help. I think when people talk about housing numbers and this, that and the other, as we've heard from our MP elected with votes from Thurrock, not so many from this side of the boundary, we tend to have our heads screwed on and look at who's going to govern the country and not who's going to sit on the back benches trying to catch the Speaker's eye through the duration of their parliamentary term. So I speak about things that actually happen. And one constituent of mine emailed me just as this recent cold winter spell we've just been through, to say that there's someone homeless living in a tent not far from that Chapelgate housing construction. So I went, fine, I emailed my staff, Kirsty O'Connell, and I said, can we deal with this case urgently? And she got on the case, and this person, who was a homeless lady, was put in immediate accommodation, so this person was kept warm until their long-term housing situation was kept secure. But the point is, this council and its officers saw an emergency in blisteringly cold weather and got someone somewhere warm to live. And it's from hearing what the leader has said about the Reform MP for South Bas and East Thurrock. Maybe if he'd done a bit more work in the constituency, he would have seen this lady and he would have justifiable reasons to moan at our staff. But a resident of mine saw this lady, done the right thing and let me know, and our officers in turn done the right thing. And I'm sure if that was any member of the council or any member of the public sitting here, they would get and expect that same response. And I think that matters. One thing the leader missed out on his announcements, and I was rather shrewd to miss out on because I'm not a big fan of screaming children, especially at Christmas. The leader was kind enough to organise a Christmas party for the kids stuck in temporary accommodation, a sort of kids' kingdom type thing. Yes, he's nodding his head. And some cabinet members attended, but I shrewdly kept away from a load of screaming kids in a venue I definitely can't smoke in. And I think the leader needs all power to his elbow, and there definitely was not a licensed bar there. So all those members there, if you don't get letters beyond your name just for attending and organising that, there is something wrong with that process. But our housing team are working through this winter. I never use announcements to have a poke at my predecessor because they don't have the right to reply. But something that did start on his watch, and here know the words, is it squeezies or something like daft called like that? It's a gadget fitted to boilers, and it started on my predecessor's watch as a trial. But what this gadget does, it determines how long a boiler's been on, and after the boiler's switched off, how quickly the property gets cold, the dampness in the property, because it helps us fight mould and other incidences in a property that causes damage and detrimental to public health. Well, just as a feedback to members, we have nearly 12,000 housing stock, and by Easter, over 8,500 of them will have this gadget fitted. So that will make things so much more easier to plan for future works, rather than look at the age or the exterior condition of a property. If a property that's been heated for the best part of the day, and when that boiler comes off it starts rapidly getting cold, our housing team will know which estates have this problem and where we need to insulate and look at other technologies out there to keep that tenant warm, and most importantly keeps them healthy. And as I would say to all members, any housing repairs, please call, please email me, and we'll do what we can to help. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to conclude, again, thank you for your services, Kim Bromley-Derry. Hope Basildon was that experience. I know when we had our recent conversation this week, you said Newham Council still has a V2 rocket in a museum. If we have problems with the Brexit negotiation, could you leave me that number and I'll get enough fuel to send at the county hall with? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Yacoub, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, ahead of Cabinet formally adopting our resident digital transformation and AI strategies next week, I am thrilled to announce that we have officially appointed HSO, a global leader in the field, as one of our strategic partners to deliver this ambitious transformation programme. I know I've come here and I've talked about AI and all things digital, and every single time everyone says, "Oh, Mariam, when you talk to me about all this techie stuff, it goes over my head." But I want you really to take a moment to imagine how transformative this could be for Basildon. Our AI strategy positions us in the top 4% of councils adopting AI across the UK. And we're not just launching a few isolated AI projects. We are building an infrastructure where AI, automation, and data science are embedded at the very core of how we operate. This partnership is a big step, and it's the right step. The government's ambition to make the UK an AI powerhouse aligns perfectly with our trajectory. Studies show that 75% of organisations who attempt to implement AI without expert guidance fail. And that's why this partnership is so important, because by bringing HSO on board, we are ensuring that Basildon avoids pitfalls and sets the stage for success. HSO is a big deal because they've been doing this kind of work for the last 30 years all around the world. And they are in Microsoft's inner circle, which basically means they're the best at what they do. They will help us to bring cutting-edge AI and data solutions to life, starting with our HR departments, our housing departments, and our customer services. But this isn't just about upgrading systems, it's about building a council that becomes smarter, faster, and truly focused on our residents' needs. Basildon is putting itself on the map as a leader in AI and digital transformation, and this is an exciting moment, and I can't wait to see how it impacts and makes a real difference in our residents' lives.
Thank you. That's it, thank you. Councillor McGeorge.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Our vision for Basildon is clear. We want to make the town centre safer, cleaner and more desirable for residents, visitors and businesses alike. Safety is a cornerstone of any thriving community, and the work we're undertaking will not only address existing concerns but also lay the foundation for continued growth and improvement in the years ahead. Alongside colleagues in community safety and regeneration, we're working to conduct a comprehensive safety survey across key areas of the town centre. This will include our transport hubs, car parks, service yards, underpasses, pedestrian routes and periphery spaces. By focusing on these areas, we aim to develop a clear and actionable plan that will significantly improve both the actual and perceived safety in the town centre. One of the key aspects of this is the recognition that our town centre is evolving. With the expected increase in nighttime economy and the new residential developments, it's crucial that we stay ahead of the curve. We know that more people will be using these spaces, especially in the evenings, and it is our responsibility to ensure that our town centre remains a safe and enjoyable place for all those who visit or call it home. In February, we will be facilitating a community safety summit, bringing together key stakeholders, including but not limited to local business owners, multinational retailers, security experts, the police and community representatives to discuss safety concerns within the town centres in the borough. This summit is aimed to enhance public safety strategies, protect local businesses and garner stronger business-community relationships. This is a genuinely exciting opportunity for Basildon to invest in its future. By improving safety and enhancing the overall experience of the town centres, we will create a space that people are proud to visit, work in and live in. And I'm confident this will pave a way for a safe and more vibrant Basildon for years to come.
Councillor McGeorge. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. At the start of the calendar year, I'd just like to take this opportunity to firstly thank Simon and all of the Towngate team for putting on brilliant performances over Panto season that were thoroughly enjoyed by all residents and my own family at the same time. So thank you to all of the team that put that on. I'd also, while I'm talking about performances, like to take this opportunity to inform members that last Saturday night I had the privilege of being invited by the Dance Fantastique, an amazing organisation that deliver dance services for residents across the borough, to see their alternative nativity. And what a brilliant show it was. And I'd like to speak on behalf of all members and thank Moira Brock and the team for all they do to provide services to residents and young people across the borough. And I was honoured to be able to present the Jack Petchey Awards evening, the Jack Petchey Awards, including some of their Leaders Awards, to user groups and to individuals that really benefited from the services that the Dance Fantastique offer. And I was delighted that the Basildon Area Committee was able to support them with a grant earlier this year. Mr Mayor, as we look forward to culture, sport and community events over the course of the year, the leader has quite rightly set ambitious targets. I have to be honest with him, it might be a stretch to support Sunderland's promotion ambitions, but clearly we are able to work towards achieving new heights. And I'm absolutely delighted that on the 5th of February we will be welcoming the Moon to the borough, with the Museum of the Moon coming to St Martin's Church, giving individuals, residents, community groups, schools the opportunity to visit the fantastic piece of work put together by Luke Duram and Creative Basildon and Arts Council England. It's been around 20 different countries, serving 23 residents, 23 individuals have been able to see the fantastic creation, and for the first time ever it's coming to South Essex, and we are the host borough for that fantastic creation being able to come to, really kicking off what will hopefully be a fantastic year of cultural events taking place, with the Estuary Festival taking place later through the year. Mr Mayor, yesterday morning I was delighted to be able to meet with sports providers, health professionals and organisations that we work with through the Find Your Active partnership, and be able to start working together to formulate our plans for the forthcoming year and the next few years, and look forward to being able to update members on the work that is taking place. But while I particularly think about sport, I also want to acknowledge the contribution and the achievements of all that support Basildon Parkrun. It's celebrating its 500th run on Saturday the 26th of January. All members are invited to attend. If you would like to join me at Basildon Parkrun, you are all more than welcome to come and celebrate this fantastic achievement. And I would also like to place on record my thanks to all the volunteers, particularly those that were out last weekend in -6 degrees across Wickford, Basildon and Billericay, in being able to put on parkrun events for residents across the whole borough. As I said yesterday, a shameless plug, I did pass my personal best last weekend. Maybe it was the cold weather that encouraged that. Mr Mayor, we have the Basildon Volunteer Awards that is coming up on the 4th of March. I'm looking forward to being able to recognise the achievements of volunteers, and I've been delighted to be able to travel around the borough and see the hard work and dedication of so many volunteers across the borough that really are the bedrock of our community. I would like to put on record tonight my thanks to all volunteers for the services and hard work that they do, but also remind residents, remind members that the closing date for nominations for the Basildon Volunteer Awards is tomorrow afternoon. So please, if you have any volunteers you would like to nominate, please follow the nomination process and get your nomination in. And we look forward to celebrating their achievements on the 4th of March. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Are there any announcements from the Chairman of Planning, Licensing, Audit and Risk or Standards and Appointment Committees? You want Cabinet members' amounts? Right, okay, Councillor Brown, and then I'll go to the Chairman. and Councillor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and apologies for my late arrival. Just a really quick announcement. I just want to thank really all the officers' hard work, all the residents that came along to our live events. We had over 1,000 residents engaged with those live events as part of our local plan consultation. We've had over 23,000 stakeholders log onto the Commonplace site and interact with the information there and to leave their comments and thoughts about everything from our policies to green spaces to employment land to homes for the future. And so I'd like to put out a big thank you to all the work that has gone into that. As you can imagine, it's quite a large piece of work now moving forwards. It's going to take a few months to get a grip on what those comments say and what they mean as we move forward with our local plan process. So hopefully I'll be able to update you on that in the spring. I don't normally talk here, even though I am the Cabinet Member for Planning, about planning meetings or about individual planning applications. But I think it's really important to know that we are the first council to benefit from the legislation that the Labour government has recently passed, that says that those developers must have 50%, I say it again, 50% affordable housing. Seriously? How sad.
47 hours, now down to 7.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you for your interruptions. I'm sure it's really beneficial. 50% of those homes have to be affordable. And it's really important that we understand what that means for our residents. Some of that affordable homes will be in terms of affordable rents. Some of it will be discounts for first-time buyers. And some of it will be shared ownership. You can see how that moving forward is going to benefit many people within this borough. Whether you're looking for a home to rent that is cheaper, a home to buy that is cheaper, or help with ownership in terms of not being able to get the mortgage for the full amount. And so I am really proud that this week we were in the Planning magazine explaining what a fantastic job our officers had done to ensure that 50% of affordable homes is coming to this borough. And I can assure you that it's a commitment of this administration, a commitment of our Labour government and a commitment of our planning team that this will not be the one and only planning application where we have 50% affordable homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McGowan.
Yeah, just a quick one from me. A reminder to residents, hopefully they've realised already, this week was the first week if you have a green bin, garden waste, wheelie bin, it was collected. We reduced the period of not collecting those bins from 6 weeks to 3 weeks. And even the residents of Billericay have been queuing up to congratulate me on that one, so thank you very much. It's very kind indeed. And also to echo Councillor Smith's point, Councillor Callaghan had a lot to get through, but another event that should be recognised was just before Christmas we had a Christmas lunch event in conjunction with the Fire Brigade for our older and vulnerable people. It was a great success, and I was proud and delighted to be there. Jess was there as well. Marianne was there. If I missed anyone out, I'm sorry.
I was there.
Jack was there. Yeah, Jack was there. Sorry. Jack was there. But on a serious note as well, as a result of that, I had a conversation with a homeless gentleman who was talking about the issues around Christmas and New Year of rough sleepers in the borough. And what we can do to help. And as a result of that, we're having a meeting with him, with the appropriate council officer next week, to see what we can do about that. So again, we're reaching out, we're engaging, and particularly with hard to reach groups, in stark contrast to the last administration.
Thank you, Councillor. Now moving on to the Chairman of the Planning, Licensing, Audit, Risk and Standards and Appointments or Appeals Committees. Any announcements? None. Any announcements from the Chief Executive?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to really put on record my thanks to the Leader, the Cabinet and all members for their support during my short period here as interim, and also to put on record my thanks to the staff and managers of the Council for all their hard work and commitment, and I wish you well for the future, and I will definitely be watching on over the next few years to see how it goes. So a big thank you to you all. Thank you.
That concludes announcements. Item number 5, petitions. There have been no petitions submitted. Item number 6, public question time. There have been no questions submitted by members of the public. Item number 7, got members' question time. There have been 2 questions submitted by a member of the council. Question number 1 from Councillor Andy Barnes to Councillor Aidan McGurran. Would you like to read out your question, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. How many complaints were made about the council's waste service in the last quarter compared to the same quarter last year?
I'd really like genuinely to thank Councillor Barnes for that question. I've had a quiet week this week, so it's been nice to be able to sort of devote my attention to an important issue like this. In simple terms, last quarter of 2023, the number of complaints about the waste service was 1,349, and in this quarter of 2024, it was 428. But as always, I can exceed expectations and I can break it down a bit more. So, October 2023, just 166. November 2023, just 297. December 2023, 886. Now, Councillor Blake, can you remind me, did something happen at the back end of November that might have prompted such a dramatic increase in complaints? But it doesn't stop there, Councillor Blake and Councillor Barnes. No, it doesn't. So, January 2024, 1,096. February, 516. March, 374. April, 460. May, 350. June, 267. July, 219. August, 190. September, 172. October, 163. November, 128. And December, 137. So, what happens when you get a Labour independent administration? We said we'd fix the bins. There's a lot more work to do, and you'll be hearing about that in the coming months. We're already fixing the bins.
Councillor Barnes, do you have a supplementary question? Thank you.
Well, I thank the councillor for his answer, but what he's saying simply isn't the case, is it? The council's own figures given to the area committee chairs show that the number of complaints about waste collections have reduced year on year, and what he's just said has confirmed that. So, yeah, there was a spike in the period immediately after we made the changes, but why is this administration spending millions of pounds of taxpayers' money diverting resources from other crucial areas to solve a problem that doesn't exist?
Oh, Councillor Barnes, it's the gift that keeps on giving. It's the gift that keeps on giving. I've genuinely, Gavin here has genuinely advised you before, stop talking about the bins. But you can't help yourself, can you? You can't help yourselves. So, right, what we did, which again, and there's a pattern, TA, great example, waste collection service, great example. We did something and you didn't because you were incapable of it. What we did, almost as soon as we could, because we had a general election, went well, didn't it? We had a general election, so it slowed us down a little bit. But then we introduced 5 weeks of the crunch across the 5 areas of the borough. Yeah. So, interestingly, and the waste crews actually told us this, they said, you know what, we can already see the amount of fly tipping and dumping of rubbish being reduced because we did something about it. You can shake your head, Kevin. You can shake your head as much as you like. But it's the truth. Yeah, all right. Through the chair, Kevin, you can shake your head. So, the other thing that we did, that the previous administration didn't bother its arse with, was we used the intelligence we were getting from residents and our wonderful waste crews to identify where these areas were and started clearing them up. That's what we did. So you go on about failure. I mean, it's unbelievable. If you think, go and knock on doors. now, you know, and talk to people. We had 8,000 people bother to respond to the consultation. The message was clear. The system doesn't work. We want weekly black collections back, and that's what we're doing. And you're going to see that in a few months. And it's actually going to cost less than your failed system did.
I have a second question from Councillor Andy Barnes to Councillor Jessica Powell. Excuse me, Councillor Jessica Powell, the Cabinet Member for Jobs, Skills and Local Economy. Councillor Barnes, would you like to read out your question, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. What steps will the Council take to help local businesses bear the cost of Labour's planned national insurance increases in April 2025?
Thank you for your question, and it gives me a great opportunity for me to reiterate that backing Basildon business is one of our 5 priorities for 2025. This has been something that I have been fully committed to and has been at the forefront of our agenda since we entered office back in May. I've spoken before, many times, about our Basildon Business Boost programme supporting local businesses, and later this month we have a workshop solely focused on HR for growing businesses. And as well as this, they do offer one-to-one fully funded financial support for all businesses across the borough. We continue to grow and connect our Basildon Business Leaders Group, offering updates on any opportunities and changes to the business landscape for our quarterly networking events, and with some really exciting things in the pipeline for this year. As well as this, we're putting Basildon businesses at the heart of everything we are doing, organising many localised Meet the Borough events and building a real local supply chain for any future regeneration. The economic development strategy that sits within the work for the local plan also shows this localised approach. We continue to work proactively with businesses and partners within education and skills to support businesses to upskill and improve the productivity of our workforce. And in February, the Council will be delivering its second Creative Tech Festival. We're obviously leading by example in this area with various business-to-business events, and we're looking to encourage and educate business with practical opportunities to utilise AI, robotics and automation technology to boost productivity. Thank you.
Councillor Barnes, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not entirely sure that answered the question, but I will thank her for her answer. I mean, if this administration supports the local economy so much, why is the council forcing local businesses to close down rather than supporting them when they have difficulty with costs such as rent payments?
Councillor Powers.
Okay. This has been a matter that has obviously hit the press this week, and as you will know, our officers work tirelessly with businesses across this council, and we are a landlord, and the same as any other private landlord would work tirelessly with this business to fix this issue. So it's not a knee-jerk reaction from the council. We've been in negotiations with this business for over 21 months. So this is not a knee-jerk decision. If you would like to talk to our officers about how much work has gone into work with these businesses, you are more than welcome to. Thank you.
That concludes item 7. Item number 8. Urgent decisions taken by the Cabinet. I call upon Councillor Callaghan, Leader of the Council, to move the report. It does not require a seconder.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I'm pleased to present for the Council's consideration the agenda item which makes reference to recent acquisitions that the Council has made. Members will be aware that as we were debating earlier on tonight, or I was updating Council earlier on tonight, we have been proactive when it comes to temporary accommodation and acquiring more units to help ease the financial pressure on this Council. Over the course of the last 7 months, we have taken a policy through around housing allocations and temporary accommodation. We have developed the strategy. We came back to Council to ask Council for the additional £80 million of headroom to align the finances, and we have now, as the next step on this process, acquired those homes, and as I've said, some of them are opening just next week, so we are therefore into that delivery phase. All of the acquisitions that are listed in this report have been to Cabinet and they have been looked at extensively, and in some cases they have been there multiple times. I am grateful, and I should put on record that I'm grateful to the Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission for allowing these decisions to be done in the urgent way that we did them. As a result of that, the taxpayer received a much better fee, and we were able to move at pace to make that happen. These acquisitions represent an important step, as I've said, in securing the assets that will contribute to allowing us to reduce the temporary accommodation bill, allowing us to get people out of hotels and bed and breakfasts. And of course, Mr. Mayor, I am happy to answer any questions that members may have on the report in front of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. The matter is open for debate. Do I have any speakers? None. Okay, the report is for noting. At the end of the debate, Councillor Callaghan may wind up. Do you wish to wind up, Councillor? Okay. The report is for noting only. That concludes item number 8. Item number 9. Noak Bridge Parish Council's Regulations 16 draft Noak Bridge Neighbourhood Plan Public Consultation. I call on Councillor Brown, the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure, to move the report. She has up to 10 minutes and does not require a seconder. Councillor Brown.
Oh, sorry, I'll start again, didn't press my button. Thank you. I just want to begin by reminding Council that originally this item would have been coming before us in March, because that was the next full Council following the Cabinet decision to bring this forward. However, thanks to the leadership of Councillor Callaghan, the work of our officers and the intervention of Councillor Terry Sargent, who has been really pressing because of the work she's done with her residents in Noak Bridge, we're able to bring this forward to you tonight. Before I go any further, I really want to express my thanks to the Noak Bridge Parish Council for the work they've done, the Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group, Councillor Terry Sargent, and every resident who has contributed to their extraordinary effort to get this before us tonight. This plan is a product of their hard work, their dedication and their vision. It's a reminder of how much we can achieve when we work collaboratively with our residents and make them the heart of our decision making. I want to begin by saying that I really do appreciate that this ideally would have been part of our local plan process, but unfortunately it was not ready at that time, and therefore it is coming forward now. The plan has been years in the making and reflects the ambitions of the people of Noak Bridge. That is why a consultation is needed now. It is the heart of everything we do within this council, is that we go to our residents, our stakeholders, our businesses, and discuss with them what plans we want to bring forward. Tonight we are not here to impose a vision. We are here to ask permission in order for us all to listen, to open the floor for dialogue, to invite feedback and let the people of Noak Bridge take centre stage in shaping their future. Think about what this means. It means giving people the opportunity to determine where they want to live, how they want to live and what those communities look like. This consultation is more than a statutory requirement. It's the cornerstone of good governance. It's how we ensure that decisions we make at this council reflect the real needs and aspirations of the people we serve. And let me tell you, when we get it right, the results can be transformative. We've seen what we were able to do with the bins following a consultation. We will see what we can do following a local plan consultation. And likewise, the people of Noak Bridge deserve to have their say. The 6-week consultation period will give everyone in Noak Bridge the chance to speak up, to shape the plan and to make it their own. And when they do, we will listen, not just to the loudest voices, but to all voices. It is important that the process cannot be overstated. When we take the time to engage with our communities, we don't just create better plans, we create their trust, and we formulate communities that matter. It is now the time for us to listen and work with them. There will be many challenges and there will be many opposing views, but all views must be heard. In closing, let us remember what this is really about. It's about empowering the residents of Noak Bridge to have their say about the future of their homes, their community and their environment. It's about showing that this council values consultation, not as a box-ticking exercise, but as a fundamental part of what we do in order to serve the people of Basildon. Tonight, I ask for your support to move this plan to consultation, to give the people of Noak Bridge a platform that they deserve, and to set an example of how local government can and should work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sargent.
She's going to moan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, for allowing me to speak this evening. And when I've spoken, I will leave the meeting because of my interest, I will not take part in the debate or the decision. It's a proud moment for myself and for my local community to have worked with them for 6 years on this Noak Bridge neighbourhood plan. We have all enjoyed it very much. We have already been empowered. We've done our empowering and we have worked with our community and we have been delighted to do so. However, as outlined on page 29 of the report, the local planning authority has a statutory duty to assist the Noak Bridge Parish Council in the preparation of their neighbourhood plan and take the PC through a process of examination and onto referendum. The Regulation 16, as amended in 2018, states, as soon as possible after receiving a plan proposal which includes each of the documents referred to in Regulation 15, a local planning authority must publicise the following on their website and in such other manner as they consider likely to bring the proposal to the attention of people who live, work or carry on business in the neighbourhood area. However, this council report has other plans for Noak Bridge Parish Council. As on page 28 of the report, Next Steps, it proposes a consultation in March 2025, 6 months since the neighbourhood plan submission. It is most definitely not as soon as possible. And just because of leadership bringing it to council in January, unfortunately, it will not get the consultation until March. The neighbourhood plan and associated documents were formally submitted to a Chief Officer of Basildon Council in July 2024. This information was fully reported on the Noak Bridge Parish Council website as a regular monthly updates. By September, both the Parish Council and consultants had not heard from Basildon regarding the consultation and wrote to them quoting Regulation 16. It became clear the Council had not taken any steps on the Regulation 16 requirement at that time. The PC resubmitted the draft neighbourhood plan. It was only then the PC were informed by the Council that the neighbourhood plan would need to go to Cabinet and full council to be agreed, for the consultation to be agreed. Residents of Noak Bridge cannot be blamed for claiming the neighbourhood plan has been kicked down the road. The Noak Bridge Steering Committee feel undermined that Basildon Council has not dealt with the neighbourhood plan in a timely manner. A plan that has been 6 years in the making and financed by their precept. If Basildon Council had acknowledged the draft plan in the first instance, Regulation 16 could have been completed long before the draft local plan consultation. It would be remiss of me not to give grateful thanks to the Parish Council planning consultants, Bluestone Planning, who have assisted and guided the PC through each process to produce the neighbourhood plan, the design code, green space assessment and character appraisal. Absolutely brilliant documents. Having seen the attached neighbourhood plan, members of this council will appreciate the quality of work they have produced, not only on this neighbourhood plan, but 50 others, taking them through to the referendum stage. Bluestone Planning have at all stages provided the PC with all information and guided them through each stage. Together with the Parish Council, they have worked with Basildon Council to ensure the neighbourhood plan had full consultation and represents many, many views. Councillor Brown, you are the Cabinet member with responsibility for the neighbourhood plan, which I'm sure you have enjoyed reading. It is in your gift, and I ask you to change the date of the consultation to January 2025 to carry out the statutory 16 requirements to publicise the plan and not kick it further down the road to March. For some reason, you have chosen also not to mention the Noak Bridge neighbourhood plan in the draft local plan. That is, sorry, can I just finish? I've got one little bit more, Mr. Mayor.
Continue.
Are you not proud that the residents of the borough have produced their own plan in accordance with the council neighbourhood plan support policy, or would it clash with overdevelopment of the 700 plus homes proposed for Noak Bridge that residents object to? Do the right thing, Councillor Brown. Please bring the consultation forward to allow the Noak Bridge neighbourhood plan to move forward to the examination stage. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. The matter is now open for debate. Do I have any speakers? Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I apologise for my attire this evening, but I had to be at the hospital this afternoon and came back after some visiting hours for a personal matter, so didn't have time to put my suit and tie on this evening. First of all, may I say I'm glad we are finally here. After 6 years of reports, surveys, emails, discussions, Noak Bridge Parish Council have submitted, in my view, a sound neighbourhood plan at a Regulations 16 stage. Councillor Brown, in her opening statement, mentioned that the fact that we're here is not included in the local plan. However, Ramsden Bell House is at Regulations 14, yet that is included in the local plan. So I wonder when she sums up, she can explain that one. So may I thank the hard work that has gone into this, to the Noak Bridge Parish Councillors, their planning consultant Bluestone Planning, and the residents of the parish for responding to initial steering groups and surveys about what the neighbourhood plan should encompass. Without them all, we would not be at this stage. The neighbourhood plan and its vision as set out on page 33 is clear: to preserve and enhance the special character and appearance of Noak Bridge, with its position as a standalone village and model of architectural excellence designed by Maurice Norton and George Garrard in the 1970s, with construction following during the early 1980s. The neighbourhood plan, for its policies, seeks to protect its designation as a conservation area, either through its design code or its requirement for sustainable construction methods that keep a unique feel and sense of place in the parish area. The protection and enhancement of green spaces and the Noak Bridge Nature Reserve are also heavily mentioned, to preserve these locations for recreation, leisure and health and well-being, along with policies to deliver biodiversity net gain and wildlife corridors. The plan also seeks to maintain the openness of a green belt, with greenbelt parcels BA1, BA2, BA3, BA4 and BA5 rated as moderate to very high in their contribution to greenbelt purposes, as evidenced by the Greenbelt Review taking place in 2023. Now, this evening, the Council is asked to approve a neighbourhood plan to go out on a 6-week consultation as required by Regulation 16 of the Neighbourhood Planning General Regulations 2012, amended 2018, and to appoint an independent examiner to progress the plan to the next stages as per Regulation 17. Considering this should merely be a formality, I find it frankly worrying that a consultation will not start until March 2025, a full 6 weeks away. Considering this is a box-ticking exercise to approve, and that the local plan consultation only classed last Sunday, I wonder why a draft consultation format is not ready to go live, say in the next 2 weeks. There has been enough time since the plan was found to be legal to set up the consultation exercise in what can clearly be seen to be a rubber-stamped legal decision to progress the plan to the next stage. I wonder if a Cabinet member, in her summing up, may address this point and the delay to consulting and getting this plan moving forward. As the Regulation 16 says, as soon as possible after receiving a plan proposal, in this case September 2024. I find that the timing to make this decision in January 2025 and not consult until March 2025 frankly goes against the spirit of these regulations and perhaps may not be legal. So I do hope we can speed it up. Finally, I wish again to thank the Parish Council and their consultants for the tremendous effort to bring this plan in front of us, and I support the recommendation this evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Schrader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I rise to welcome this neighbourhood plan for Noak Bridge. I moved from South Green to Noak Bridge in 1998 after my parents separated into a little house on Lower Street, about 6 doors down from Councillor Sargent, as it happens, although I didn't know her at the time. It was like moving to an oasis of calm, huddled as it is against the arterial to the south and farmland to the north. It's an island of tranquility, an incredibly special place and community. It's also very pretty. When I lived there, it was affectionately known as Toy Town. I'm not sure if it still goes by that sobriquet, but if you've been there, you'll know it's apt. We eventually moved to Langdon, but I lived there again briefly about 10 years ago, just long enough to be dragooned somewhat against my will by Councillor Sargent into service as a Noak Bridge Parish Councillor. It'll always have a special place in my heart, the village, not the Parish Council. Mr. Mayor, as outlined on page 25 of the report, we have a statutory duty to assist the Parish Council in the preparation of their neighbourhood plan and to take them through a process of examination and referendum. The Reg 16, as amended in 2018, states as soon as possible after receiving a plan proposal. Yet, page 28 states that the consultation won't take place until March, and that's been mentioned by the previous speakers. That'll be 8 months, depending on when we accept that the plan was received. Is that really as soon as possible? Now, as I understand it, officers have had the plan since July, but possibly not until September. But in any event, I do, whilst welcoming the report tonight, I do implore the Cabinet member, who I know takes the Council's statutory duties seriously, to use her good offices to expedite this process if possible. If the plan had been properly acknowledged in the first instance, I think the Regulation 16 probably could have been completed by now, indeed prior to the draft borough local plan consultation, and I think this process should be brought forward and completed without further delay. Though she'd never claim plaudits for herself, Councillor Sargent has been indefatigable in pushing this forward, ensuring it was done properly in consultation with Noak Bridge residents to ensure it accurately reflects their views. Councillor Brown has it in her gift to ask the planning officers to look at this, to see if they can expedite this process. It sounds like she's already done that to some extent to bring this report here tonight. And I think 8 months cannot possibly be as soon as possible. It must be within the capabilities of officers to publicise this plan and carry out the consultation in the next few weeks. Noak Bridge residents shouldn't have to wait until March, in my view. They've waited long enough. We should be applauding this community for their efforts. They've produced a plan according with our own neighbourhood plan support policy. I appreciate there'll be friction around the 700 homes the other side are proposing for Noak Bridge that residents object to. But they've played by the rules, they've produced a plan. This council should now do the decent thing and commence this consultation without further delay and let the chips fall where they may. It should be a fair process for everyone, and they followed the rules. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Schrader. I now call upon Councillor Allen.
of history here. In the 1980s, Basildon Development Corporation started housing and development in an area named Noak Bridge, north of the A127. The design criteria for this Noak Bridge was to reflect the character of a traditional English village with its own identity. The completed design and construction was much acclaimed by architects, town planners and residents, such that a conservation area was set up and continues to this day in the central part of the village. Subsequent developments adjacent to this conservation area have been built generally in styles sympathetic to the core, which maintains the ambience of the village without necessarily adopting the details of the original Development Corporation intention. Moving on to 2018, the Parish Council and residents wish to preserve this unique village atmosphere and took the opportunity to create a neighbourhood plan. It is hoped that the plan will provide direction and criteria to ensure that the village and its environs will continue to be enjoyed by present and future residents. Unfortunately, within the neighbourhood plan area, the current version of the draft Basildon local plan offers 3 large housing areas denoted H3, H2 and H26. Building developers have already submitted hybrid plans for H22 and H26, several hundred houses in prospect. It is essential that the Council progresses the Noak Bridge neighbourhood plan as quickly as possible to enable the neighbourhood plan to be considered in the implementation of new developments. Tonight the Council are being asked to progress the plan through the final stages as described in the recommendation. And the recommendations 1 to 4. You can see it's quite a number of difficult stages to go through yet, and I hope the members will support this progress to complete these stages as quickly as possible for the reasons that has been outlined by various speakers this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's encouraging to see that the neighbourhood plan for Noak Bridge is moving forward. It's evident that the Parish Council has worked diligently on these proposals, and I hope the consultation will allow residents to express their views on the draft policies and ideas presented. As the document notes, this plan was submitted through the proper channels back in September of last year, and as the Cabinet member has already said tonight, they had to bring forward an additional council meeting for tonight due to significant delays already experienced. I welcome the acknowledgement that there was a missed opportunity that it wasn't included in the broader local plan consultation. Had this been aligned with the consultation process, much like the Ramsden Bell House proposals, it would have provided an opportunity to test public opinion in a more comprehensive context beyond just the Noak Bridge area. Now, setting aside the issues residents have identified with the recently concluded process for the new local plan, it would have offered a chance for people to reflect on how the Noak Bridge proposals fit into the bigger picture. For example, we've seen the Wickford Town Council in the early stages of developing its own neighbourhood plan, yet even at this stage, those on its steering group have raised concerns with me about the feasibility of moving forward, and delays like we've seen here will only compound those issues further. I hope the Planning Department can develop a more streamlined process to ensure that local neighbourhood plans can be brought forward when parishes and town councils wish to do so. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. I have no more speakers, so I'll move to Councillor Brown to wind up. You have up to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors, for your input tonight. I just want to make a couple of things clear. Yes, it came to our offices in September, and no, it was not complete. We all know an environmental study was not there, and that needed to be done. The next available cabinet meeting, once all of that had come into us, was December. It was listened to at December. It was voted on for December. The next stage in the process was that it must come to a full council. There was not a full council till March. We brought a full council forward tonight to January. We are not in any way trying to delay your neighbourhood plan. What I would say is you talked a lot about the fact that the Noak Bridge Parish Council and Councillor Terry Sargent been driving that forward for the last 6 years. So for the last 6 years, whilst Councillor Moore, for the majority of the time, had this portfolio, you weren't able to bring it forward. Yet, we've only been around for 6 months. And as soon as that was all documentation, including the environmental reports, came before us in September, it went to the next available cabinet meeting, and we have brought forward a full council meeting so we can progress this. In no way do I want to delay hearing from the voices of those residents in Noak Bridge. So tonight, as I said at the very beginning, I am speaking in favour of this. I brought this report together in front of all councillors tonight, not so we can stand and preach to the people of Basildon, the people of Noak Bridge, our own vision of what Noak Bridge should and should not be, but to say to them, this is the plan that has come forward. What do you think? And that consultation process will begin and will be carried out in a way that it statutory needs to be, and we will listen to those voices. So I would urge all councillors tonight to vote for this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I will now move to the vote, which are found on page 26 of the agenda. The recommendations are there set before us. Can I have an indication of all those in favour? Please show. And keep your hand up, please, for the counting. Okay, that vote seems to be unanimous. Are there any abstentions? Any against? Thank you, Council. Now move on to item 10, the electoral cycle. Quite right. Can we recall the 2 councillors that have absented themselves? Okay, we now continue. Item number 10, the electoral cycle. Members are directed to the supplementary agenda that was sent out for this report. I call upon Councillor Callaghan, the leader of the council, to remove the report for up to 10 minutes and does not require a seconder. Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, we are being asked to consider something that could bring real change to the way this council operates. The Boundary Commission for England, in their review of our electoral boundaries, which was conducted in 2023, recommended that Basildon Council move to all-out elections starting in May 2024. Their recommendation is based on the way councils like ours can best run and deliver for the people we represent. At present, around 70% of councils elect their councillors through all-out elections every 4 years. In Essex, our neighbours in Chelmsford, Castle Point, Thurrock and Essex County Council all elect through all-out elections. It is seen by businesses, stakeholders and officers as the most effective way to run local government. Moving to all-out elections would mean every councillor is elected at the same time every 4 years. It's a system that across local government provides clarity, consistency and a proper mandate for the council to govern. Currently here in Basildon we hold elections in thirds. It means we are electing a portion of councillors every year for 3 years, with a break in the 4th year for a county council election. While this has worked in the past, it does create challenges. Annual elections mean the council is almost always in campaign mode, which can make it harder to focus on the bigger picture and to deliver change. It cannot be a surprise to our residents and businesses that in Basildon, the constant election cycle hinders progress on things like regeneration, housing, the local plan and digital transformation. The system of thirds takes power out of the hands of councillors and gives it to unelected officers. Those of us in this chamber who have led the council or been in cabinet positions will understand that in the current system, the council finishes its business ahead of a pre-election period in mid-March and does not return until the end of May for an AGM. Cabinet and full council then does not meet until July, with a break over the summer, meaning that September, October, November and half of December is left for business. January, February and half of March then concludes the year. In essence, council only functions with councillors sitting and taking decisions for 7 months out of the 12. No other business operates like this. It also means that officers seldom enact the will of councillors for fear that a new administration is only ever a few months away from taking office. Councillors' power, and therefore the power of the voting public, is immediately undermined, and residents' frustration at a lack of progress on the delivery of big issues is understandably palpable. Take the regeneration of Wickford, Langdon and Basildon town centres as an example. Failures to have a coherent strategy with strong, consistent political leadership and a constant threat of political change every 12 months hanging over the head of councillors has meant a total lack of strategy, an absence of coherent policy, a lack of private sector confidence and ultimately a lack of investment, all of which leads to town centres that are dying and stalling. Mr Mayor, I believe that no councillor can deny that the cycle of constant elections in our borough has played a significant role in the chaotic and disappointing outcomes we've seen for the regeneration of our towns. The same is true for our local plan. We had one, we stopped one. We had one, we stopped one. Now we have one. The problem is, it's massive. I saw yesterday that one of our local MPs, who spends all day in the House of Commons fighting hard for the people of Basildon and Billericay, is questioning, he was questioning ministers about whether or not we would rush through a local plan. He wants to stop the, and I'm quoting here, the local council leader supremo. That's my new name. I expect everyone to be calling me the local council leader supremo from now on. But it was suggesting that I'm going to try and rush through a local plan. Rushing it through.
27 years.
I know that Dickie isn't from round here, but even in concert, 27 years can hardly be classed as rushing something through. So our housing strategy has suffered from the elections in thirds, which in turn means our young people have failed to get the homes that they need. Has that really been a price worth paying? All-out elections would allow us to plan and deliver over a full 4-year term without these constant interruptions. And it would, of course, save money. Running elections every year is expensive, and those costs ultimately come out of the council's budget, money that could be better spent on local services. This isn't also just about how the council works, it's about how we are seen by those who work with us. Basildon's businesses, investors and stakeholders want to see a council that's stable and focused on the long term. Right now there is a sense that the current system does not give those businesses the certainty they need. Constant change, changes in political priorities, in engagement styles, in approach, all of which leads to a total lack of trust and confidence in a system that doesn't seem to have trust and confidence in itself. Policies can shift from year to year. That can make it harder, as I've said, to attract investment, but also to build partnerships. Moving to all-out elections gives us the chance to show that we're serious about delivering on our promises and providing consistency for the borough. Now, tonight's decision is the first step. It isn't about whether tonight we switch to the all-out elections. That vote will come. It is about whether we give the people of Basildon the chance to have their say. This recommendation from the Boundary Commission, I believe, deserves to be put to the public, and that's what we're being asked to approve tonight. It is important that residents get their say in how their council works. They're the ones who will feel the benefits of a system that's more efficient, cost-effective and stable. Giving them this choice is the right thing to do. Mr. Mayor, the Boundary Commission's recommendation is clear. Moving to all-out elections is a logical step forward for Basildon, and it is something our stakeholders and partners want to see. But it is not our decision to make alone. By supporting this tonight, we are giving the people of Basildon the chance to decide what is best for their council. All-out elections mean fewer distractions and more delivery for the people of Basildon. In Basildon, we need to stop campaigning every year and start governing for 4. Let's show them that we're committed to stability, efficiency and delivering for the borough, not just for now, but for the years to come. I hope all councillors will support putting this to the public this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. The matter is now open for debate. I call upon Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's be honest here, that was total nonsense. Why on earth would an administration seek to carry out electoral reform on an authority that's due to be abolished before the changes are due to come into effect? We've just been through a lengthy process of electoral reform in this borough with the boundary changes, and during that whole period, did we hear a proposal for a 4-year electoral cycle from the Labour Party? No, we did not. Not a peep, Mr. Mayor, but suddenly, inexplicably, it becomes necessary, indeed vital, that we suspend the make-up of local government. Just at the moment, support for the Labour Party was at a record high. The real reason this is with the council today isn't to save money or make things more efficient. It's a backup in case the Labour Party's plan to suspend local elections in 26 and 27 fails and Labour councillors have to face the electorate they've let down so completely. I've seen proposals come to this council that have made me think colleagues are misguided. I've seen proposals that are well-meaning but a bit dim, and sometimes even ones that are quite good. But this is the first time I've felt that something has come to us that is fundamentally undemocratic and downright wrong. Because that's what this is. It's a cynical attempt to avoid the electorate and cling on to power by an administration run by a party that won barely 23% of the vote at the last local election. And it's worth noting, that's the high point. That's all you won and that's all you'll ever win. Not even a quarter of our residents voted for this Labour administration, and yet, with the help of Grew and his minions, you are going to take the opportunity to force through an unpopular local plan, unnecessary wage changes, reckless, unbudgeted spending commitments, all whilst hiding behind a devolution programme that will end up costing more money and make councillors and councils less accountable. If a banana republic announced they were going to suspend all local elections for 4 years whilst they sorted out a programme of nebulous local government reform, observers would, rightly, call it out for what it is, an attempt to wrestle control from the people by politicians seeking to make themselves unaccountable. At the last local election, the public were asked to elect members for 2, 3 and 4-year terms. Many voters will have considered those choices carefully. The length of the terms available may well have factored into the decisions of how they decided to vote. The proposed delaying of local elections and now this plan to kill them off entirely until 2028 makes a mockery of the process that elected all the members in this chamber in May of this year. Can we be surprised that the public express such cynicism with politicians, that they say we are all the same or that we do not speak for them, when they can see such an obvious attempt to undermine local democracy and rig the system for our own benefit? No one in Essex outside this chamber wants this. I haven't spoken to a single resident who's told me they wanted to replace Essex County Council by joining a bankrupt Thurrock Unitary, nor one from whom their burning passion was the intricacies of Basildon's borough electoral system. They want us to get on and do the job we were elected to do. And it's worth noting that this story hasn't really yet hit the mainstream. There's been a bit of noise on social media, but when the wider public becomes aware of this attempt to take away their voice, they will judge those politicians they deem responsible. Previous Labour administrations have been brought down by one characteristic every time, whether it was the local plan in 2018 or the Lane and Community Centre in 2020, and that is pushing through unpopular measures without public consent, and this is the latest. And the irony of all this is that if the Conservatives were in administration and we were trying to force through exactly the kind of change this proposes, it would be Labour councillors standing up and saying exactly what I am saying, because you know in your heart of hearts that this is the wrong way to go. It benefits no one outside of this chamber. It is for independent members to decide if they wish to go down with this particular ship, but do not say you weren't warned. Take a step back. Think about how this looks to the public at large and make the right decision. Reject this consultation and the suspension of local democracy in Essex. Do what is right for the people you represent and right for this borough. Your residents will thank you, and you will have shown the power that independent voices can have on local authorities. This shameful idea needs to go in the bin, Mr. Mayor. Reforming local government is no justification to take away people's opportunity to vote. I will be voting against this, and I urge all of you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Barnes has been peeking over my shoulder. Well, the question that immediately arises is why? As the report acknowledges on page 4, we had a boundary review and contested all-out elections last year. That would have been the time to consider altering the electoral cycle, and indeed, as the report says, that was considered by the previous Conservative administration. I remember us discussing it at group, and people made their arguments for and against, and ultimately it became the settled will of the Conservative group, and thereby the administration at the time, that we would stick to the tradition of electing this council by thirds. I recognise what it says in the report, about 69% of councils hold all-out elections, but electing by thirds has always been the well-established tradition here in Basildon ever since the council was founded half a century ago. And there was a strong feeling that this should be maintained, people are used to it, and part of the justification for the changes to eliminate two-member wards was precisely to accommodate electing by thirds and remove the two-member wards that didn't have elections some years when everybody else did. There was a feeling that electing by thirds keeps the council in touch with residents and allows us to refresh our mandate more regularly and be more accountable. Now, what the report doesn't say, and which my colleague has alluded to, is that this was never seriously challenged by any of the other parties, at least not I can remember. There was never any attempt to amend the report, to reintroduce the question of moving to all-out elections or anything like that. In some respects, I think that was a shame. It would have been good to have the wider debate and more public airing of the issues, because I think there are strong and compelling arguments on both sides. It would have been a genuinely interesting debate, and I agree with many of Councillor Callaghan's criticisms of electing by thirds. But we didn't have that debate. Indeed, other than a bit of bickering over the names of new wards, there wasn't much of a debate at all, as I recall. The all-out election took place in May, and here we now sit, a fully reconstituted council. What this report now seeks to do is retrospectively alter the basis on which people voted last May to say that instead of the person who comes first getting the full 4-year term and the person who comes last facing re-election in 2026, everyone elected last year now enjoys a full term, and we won't hold any more elections until 2028. Now, that makes a kind of sense. It's not unreasonable, but it is fundamentally different to the basis on which people voted. It may be that knowing everyone was getting a full term would have made no difference at all to how people voted. It very probably wouldn't have made much difference, but it may have affected how some people voted, particularly those who don't simply give all their votes to candidates of the same political colour, and we know they're out there. The people who distribute their votes amongst the different parties might have thought differently about how they were voting if they didn't think their third choice would be up in 2 years, that they would have a chance to revise their opinion in 2026, but would have to wait until 2028. The democratically purest thing to do would be to rerun the all-out, which underscores the sheer silliness of not having argued for this last year if it was what you wanted to do. But there's another elephant in the room. Why on earth would you hold a not inexpensive public consultation on changing the electoral cycle of a council you are simultaneously seeking to abolish altogether? That's the madness of this whole item. We're here talking about how people should be elected to this place when those opposite don't even want this place to exist. It's more than a little dotty, to be perfectly honest. And as I understand it, we're likely to know, possibly as early as tomorrow, whether the Secretary of State's going to side with those plans. So this whole thing could be completely redundant. I tell you what I think this is all about, and Councillor Barnes touched on it. This is how horribly, horribly free the party opposite are of fighting local elections over the next couple of years in the face of a Labour government that has imploded quicker than anyone could have imagined, whose popularity just 6 months in is totally in the toilet and whose poll rating is through the floor. They are absolutely terrified of the voters being given an opportunity to express their disgust at this government. Winter fuel, inheritance tax, building over the Greenbelt, Rachel Reeves' budget. They need mid-term local elections like a hole in the head. This is a naked attempt to hedge your bets in case local government reorganisation doesn't come off, to ensure you can forestall local elections scheduled for May 2026. This will pass tonight, of course, but it won't get my support. We see you, we see this for what it is. You're running scared, and you're right to.
Thank you, Councillor Schrader. Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There isn't very much left for me to say. My colleagues have said all what I think about and what we as a group think about. This is absolutely outrageous. When I think that the previous report asked for a consultation for a neighbourhood plan to be brought forward, and it's going to be delayed for, 12 weeks? And yet now you're calling for a consultation on this that my colleagues have adequately outlined why it is totally unnecessary to do so, and because the Labour and Coalition, if the Coalition vote with them, are absolutely running scared of reform and other people getting in rather than yourself. So let's call it out for what it really is, and let's say no more consultations. Let's have the Noak Bridge one first.
Members, thank you. So a bit of decorum. Councillor Sargent, thank you for your comments. Councillor Brockman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Before we start, I've got a couple of things to say. Just to remind Councillor Sargent, these independents at the back here are not supporting anyone. We're doing our own thing. And the other thing is, I'd like to congratulate Councillor McGovern for making his way onto the BBC One website. It made me Okay, so get to serious things. As everyone in this chamber knows, my whole reason for being a councillor is that I believe that each and every one of us, by being elected members, we are responsible for public funds. Not any one of us has any more or less responsibility than others, and we should all be mindful of that fact. However, as the leader afforded me the privilege of being chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, I have taken that responsibility very seriously. I find the waste of public funds to be abhorrent, and when I found out that the elections that cost around £200,000 each time, that means by having a 4-yearly cycle, we could save around £600,000. This money could be spent on better things, i.e. we could actually have a pride team in each and every one of our towns, right across the borough. To be honest, really, I don't care about who brought this idea to the table. It could be Conservative, Labour or Independent. I just find the whole idea to be quite interesting and attractive at the same time, and one that should be investigated. However, by saying that, I also believe that we should all listen to our residents, and therefore believe that this should go to a consultation. What actually does concern me, though, is in a small ways, how much would a consultation cost? Although, let's face it, it would be a one-off jobby, and therefore, once done, the money saved could be spent on better things, as I mentioned before. As the only true independent group on this council that is truly not whipped, we have discussed this matter at great lengths. I cannot predict how my fellow group members will be voting. However, I can say that I shall be voting for it, because the consultation will be very interesting indeed, and I look forward to seeing the results. Thank you, Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Councillor Brockman. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to pull up one point Councillor Brockman said about our particular independence, and I don't want to sound like that sketch out of The Meaning of Life. I'm sorry, Monty Python, Life of Brian, about who's the Judean Popular People's Front and the Splitters People's Front of Judea. But my group is not registered with the Electoral Commission, a group of Euro fanatics who went after prosecuting anyone who campaigned for the referendum. So that's why my group is like Del Boys. No income tax, no VAT, no accounts or paperwork for the Electoral Commission. We are solely put there by the people. But I've heard the Conservatives here today. They've never put their points to Councillor Bentley and his predecessors that we should have annual elections with county. Well, I've never heard you come to full council Essex and say, Councillor Bentley, can we have annual elections? Because we've noticed if you leave the borough of Basildon, even when you leave Billericay and you go into Brentwood and Chelmsford, you can play a game for kids on your car. It's called Spot the Pothole. And it's Basildon's money's paying for it. But last Friday we had the debate at county, and there was genuine cross-party support. Apart from the Liberals who want Basildon's taxis bolstering Chelmsford and Brentwood, who was dithering in the lane and trying to stop Baz exit. But the motion passed with the basis that the county's had its day. They've made the submission to government for change so that Basildon's money can stay in the borough. But what is this question here tonight? Do we ask the public? Do we suspend the elections for the statements given by the leader, or the questions and points raised by members of opposition? Why can't we put that question to the public in a consultation? Because we're duty bound to enact it. What's the problem with that? I've heard comments made by Councillor Sargent who are all living in fear of reform. I cannot wait for an election in my patch, because I will remind the electorate their Member of Parliament is a wife beater. In fact, I don't need to remind my electors, because at my surgeries or when I'm out in my division, I have people say, I did vote reform. If I'd have known, I'd have spoilt my ballot paper. And let's face it, when there is an election in the new town, maybe as early as 26 for the new Mayor of Essex, unless this party in this chamber wishes to oppose their party in the county and join the small ranks of Mark Francois, who's against Baz exit. And what you will probably see is in those sort of elections, Reform eating Labour's fries, but they'll be eating Tory hamburgers. Why would a party with centre-right views go after Labour's vote? They'll be eating the Conservative hamburgers all day long. Yeah, Labour will lose a few votes, but it'll be the Conservative Party that will pay the price. And admittedly, the National Labour Party have muffed up on a number of things, but if I had any sway over the government, I'd be changing quite a few things. But this is a local council looking at how best we spend the taxpayers' money. Do we spend this nearly £250,000 every time to have a local election, where as many as 80 to 70% of electors stay indoors? Or do we spend that money going to 4 yearly elections and that saving supporting the front line services? So the streets are clean, the parks are well maintained, because when anything nasty happens in a park when the summer nights are here, residents are quite rightly, with press support, contacting their ward councillors going, why don't we have this patrol? Why don't we have this security? Why isn't this being done? Where's the police? Well, if we've just spent that on sending postal votes out to people where 7 out of 10 are not even returned in some places, this is the problem. But equally, the reason why people aren't voting as many as they do in a local election, the fault all lays on our shoulders in each proportion. Some areas feel the need to vote and some areas don't feel the need to vote. And it's something, whatever our parties are, we should all get together to bolster turnout. That's very important, it's a key part of our democracy. But councils having annual elections are becoming like dinosaurs. You don't have any in the cities in this country. Most of the districts and boroughs in Essex have gone to 4 yearly elections because they'd rather use that saving. So just to focus members' minds, this is a vote on a consultation to ask the public. This isn't trying to sort of pacify comments you might have had from Mr. Francois MP. This is not about making our leader General Admiral Supremo. This is asking the people for their say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Mayor. If you may indulge me for a minute, I'd just like to make a comment that's not actually to do with this, but it's about to do with your Mayor's dinner. When the previous administration were in, I took it upon myself to go to the dinner because I think it's what you should do because it's for charities. Shame that it wasn't being reciprocated when we held ours, but I can assure you, congratulations on going against tradition and going for jelly deals, pie and mash, stew deals. I cannot wait. I'm looking forward to it immensely. And no, I won't be dressing up. Or maybe I will. Depends if I get any money to not do it. So looking forward to that immensely. And it's really great that you've taken it on board. So thank you. Just a quick thing on Councillor Bentley saying that we've never heard us. I can assure you, everyone in this group has had their say on that strongly, very strongly behind closed doors of how we feel about it. So you might not have heard it out there, but believe me, those discussions have taken place. Consultation, very interested to know what that would cost. You know, it would have been nice to have actually known how much that would actually cost the residents. I'm against the actual consultation taking place for the reasons that have been given by my colleagues. However, what I would be very interested to see what the consultation says. Because if we get, say, for argument's sake, 51% say they want to keep it as it is, and 49% say they want to change it. It'd be very interesting to see whether you go along with the majority vote or not, or decide that you're scared to go to the electorate. So that's what I'm going to be more intrigued about, how many people actually vote, what the percentage is, and the turnout can be very important. But I should be encouraging people, because you literally are running scared of the Conservative and the Reform Party. It's a fact. If you went, you know as well as I know, if you went for a general election now, you would be wiped out. Absolutely wiped out. As we were, absolutely, as we were, and deservedly so. Not going to argue that fact. But your government is probably the most unpopular government I've ever known. So you will be completely wiped out. So if you want to do this, then maybe you should think about it starting in 2026. So you actually go for the 4-yearly then, not in 2028. So do it now. Tell the public what you want to really do it. Well, have it all out now and go for it in 2026 and see what the electorate actually say then. Let's not muck about. Let's not stall. Get the consultation. If it goes in your favour as you want, then go for it in 2026. Why not? I'll tell you why not, because you're dead scared to face the electorate in 2026. Absolute fact. You know it, we know it, the people out there know it.
Thank you, Councillor Blake. That concludes the debate. Councillor Callaghan, you have 5 minutes in which to wind up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Reverse order. Wow, that was a hell of a set of contributions. Let's start with Councillor Blake. Councillor, I'm not going to talk about jelly deals. Councillor Bentley heard you and then he ignored you. That is a pattern of behaviour that we have seen for the last 25 years here in Basildon, and that is exactly why we need to get rid of Essex County Council as part of the devolution agreement. I have to say, I don't know, listening to the Conservatives, both in the last section now, whether they are in favour of consultations or they're against consultations, whether they want them or they don't. I mean, Councillor Sargent has said very clearly tonight she doesn't want any consultations ever again in the history of Basildon Council. That's exactly what you said, and that's on the record as well. But it sounded like an audition from our Conservative colleagues to be given the title of Basildon Council's first reform councillor, because they couldn't go further enough to stand up and do that. And let me just make one thing really clear. It is not within the gift of Basildon Borough Council to cancel any elections here in our borough. We cannot cancel the 2026 elections. We cannot cancel 2027 elections. And that is why in the report before you, it does not say anything about cancelling elections. What it says is that we will have elections in 26, elections in 27, and then the elections in 2028 will be all outs. And the reason for that is because we are facing a huge financial pressure because you are overspending to the tune of £2.3 million on your bin reform. And because we've had 15 years of the government's austerity programme that has left the council's finances in the situation that it is. And it is also, one of the things you have not heard a single councillor stand up and talk about tonight is about the services. So nobody could refute on those benches tonight that regeneration has stalled because of the absurd way that we go about running this council. I'm interested in the Wickford approach on this because we all know that Wickford would have had a Morrison's supermarket in the town centre up and running now because of a decision taken in January 2021, but the then chief executive did not enact the will of the council because he knew that there was a chance of an administration change just a few months later, and he sat on that decision. And that has happened time and time and time again. And that is a problem. And we are seeking to stop that problem from happening. I hate to break it to Councillor Barnes, but in banana republics, they don't have elections. and the ones that they do have are not particularly democratic, my friend. So it wasn't the best example that you could give. I am curious to know who he speaks to, because if he doesn't think that people want housing in this borough, and if he doesn't think they want their bins changed in this borough, and if he doesn't think that they want this council to have more control over fixing potholes, he really does have his head in a cloud over there in Billericay East, because I can tell you on all three of those counts, the people of this borough are absolutely clear. We need to build homes for local people. We need to get people off our council house waiting list. We need to fix these bins, go back to weekly collections, and we need to give this council far more say over potholes, youth services, adult social care, as well as everything else. Councillor Sargent spoke, but I have no idea what it was about, so I just can't even bring myself to go there. Councillor Schrader says that we're frightened about fighting elections. We're pretty good at it, fellas. Right? When you look at the number of our councillors, we're pretty good at it. Right? And I think I've made it abundantly clear tonight. The minute I get to go into bat against the convicted criminal MP and his Reform Party and those disciples, bring that on, my friends. I don't live in a social media echo chamber. When you're out there on the streets and you're delivering like we are, time and time again, there's a reason why they have started to attack me and Richard Holden the same, and that's because this administration is delivering every single week on the things that we are about. And the point has been made. The same arguments that you are making against, I mean, Councillor Headley is in a really difficult position here tonight. I do feel for him, because on Friday he was voting against the very arguments that his own members are making today. Maybe he won't. Maybe he will join us in voting tonight to give the public their say. I know he's a rebel. He doesn't always go in line with his group. But the truth is, Mr. Mayor, that the opposition tonight have decided to try and conflate something. They have tried to tell us that this is about cancelling elections, even though there is not a single reference to that anywhere in this report, because there is not in the gift. It is not in the gift of Basildon Council to do it. It is only in the gift of the Secretary of State to do it. So unless you know something that I don't, then I would say that. And also, I would say that in terms of the cost of the consultation, this is an online consultation. It will not cost the council a penny in terms of the consultation, because it's online. It says that very clearly. The consultation document is put as an appendix to the report. And so, yes, online computers, it's 2025. Welcome along to the modern world. I know they'd struggle to spell AI, but there you go. This is where we are. But this report tonight is simply about giving people their say. We will be back here on the 20th of March, as the recommendation says, and we will debate the findings of that consultation then. We will put that to the vote, and at that point, it is worth making this clear, Mr Mayor, it will require a 2/3 majority in order for this to go through at that point. So make friends and influence. You're not very good at it from the speeches you've made this evening, but make friends and influence, and who knows, you may be able to get your way. But we will see what the results are. But let's give the public their say. Let's not be afraid of consultation. Whether it's the Noak Bridge Parish Council Neighbourhood Plan, whether it is the all-out elections, this administration wants to hear from its public. Why don't they?
Yeah.
Thank you. Now move to the vote. On page 3 of a supplementary agenda, the 4 recommendations are set out. I'd ask for those who indicate in favour of the recommendations to please indicate. Are there any abstentions? All those against? Thank you. That vote is carried. Item number 11, notices of motion. I've had no urgent emergency motions for consideration. Therefore, this meeting is closed. Have a safe journey home.